Extraction 2 is here to up the stakes and blow our minds. Similarly to the first film, it required an enormous amount of dedication from the cast and crew, and it wasn't easy.
It's a nerve-wracking experience.
Yet the result was worth it. Astonishing, literally explosive action, with meticulous attention to the tiniest details.
It was just like a contortionist ballet.
I want to know how they filmed a super complex 20-minute chase and fight scene, all with mostly practical effects. And how the cast still had fun at the same time? Then buckle up and prepare to have your mind blown. Boom. Let's start with the first film and its tensest sequence with Tyler Rake extracting the kidnapped boy. With this scene, the director, Sam Hargrave, wanted the audience to feel as if it was happening in real time, and he thought that one long take was the way to do it.
We had a major action sequence that felt like one continuous shot. We call that a oneer.
It's just crazy how intricate this 12-minute-long sequence was. Just take a look at all the elements of the scene. A car chase, a pursuit up some stairs, a fight in a building, a jump from one rooftop to another, a fall off a canopy, a fight in the street, and another car chase. To film some of the parts, Hargrave actually strapped himself to the hood of a vehicle. Who knew being a director could be so dangerous? But it allowed him to quickly switch to a handheld camera when needed. So this film wasn't only full of stunts for the actors, but the director too. However, Hargrave is no stranger to that. He previously worked as a stunt coordinator in MCU and many other movies. Now let's get back to that insane sequence in Extraction. Eventually, they shot 36 different segments attached together. And then the team turned them into an impressive 12-minute, seemingly continuous scene with no visible cuts. It all required camera moves by foot and by harness. And of course, they needed the actors to be able to endure extended fight scenes.
It's not just me and a camera and, Chris Hemsworth in a car. There's hundreds of people involved in making this happen. So where do you stage them? It was a really intense technical puzzle to solve.
From planning to rehearsing and shooting, it took 4 to 5 months to bring the scene to life.
We were testing and proving everything so that when we got there were no unanswered questions. We knew exactly where stitches were going to happen, how were we going to, throw this person over a balcony and capture that.
And then it took 10 days to film it. For some of the fragments, they needed to do over 20 takes. Sometimes it took a toll on the actors, so most of the exhaustion and deep breaths you see on the screen were real. Despite the difficulty, it looked like the crew kinda loved doing it all, because the second film had an even larger scene filmed in a similar way.
It's a 22-minute sequence. It's not obviously one take. There's a lot of wipes.
And even Chris can't tell where the cuts are in this scene. It looks like one continuous take, with stitches hidden in closed doors, falling bodies, and things like that. Interestingly, they didn't create it just for the sake of one-upping themselves. Hargrave said that it was more about what fits the story, and it appears that impressive chase and fight scenes suit Extraction perfectly. This time, the sequence consisted of 3 main parts: a prison break, a high-speed car chase through the woods, and action on a moving freight train. The prison part alone took over 4 months of preparation and required 400 stunt performers.
We're about to light 5 stunt players and Chris Hemsworth on fire.
And that's what they did. The crew filmed it in 3 days with layers and layers and layers of stunts. It was all done in freezing temperatures, and that was only the beginning. For the next part, they created a huge car chase with all kinds of vehicles involved.
We're in the car, someone's driving it, someone's on top of the car, there's other cars and motorbikes, ATVs and so on, flying around and smashing into each other.
The production rented more than 150 vehicles and purchased another 116. Many of them were modified before filming because they had to handle the practical effects and actual flips. Even the explosions were real.
And so we wanted to get as close as possible, and it gets hot when you get that close.
Well, no wonder. You're literally driving through fire, guys. Hargrave also wanted to up the ante in the second film by moving the camera in and out of the cars more often. To get this effect, they simply passed it out of the vehicle.
So I'm reaching inside, I pull it out, I have to grab it, so now I'm operating with my arms crossed. But I kept the car in frame.
And of course, they also used a lot of dummies in the scene.
But we had 2 bikes and 2 dummies on them. I just love throwing in things like that. It's just such a old school way of doing something like this.
But don't think that they filmed absolutely everything on the ground, because they also used some blue screen and sometimes needed the help of stuntmen, like in this part, for example, where the car flips over.
We had a hydraulic lift on the car, so it starts to tip on the blue screen, and then during that motion, we stitch to practical location, practical stunt driver actually flipping the car over.
Chris was thrilled by the way his stunt guy reacted to the sequence.
He got out, shook it off, thumbs up, and on we went.
Yeah, that's no big deal for the man, just another day at work. But more often than not, it was Chris doing the job. And it led to the sequence that became the most painful for the actor. It wasn't where he was punched in the face, kicked, or anything like that. Nope, it was the scene where he had to run with the girl in his arms. There were so many takes that the actor was completely exhausted.
Chris is like, I don't want to run anymore. I'm like, I'm running with you, man. I'm right there with you.
At one point, he finally stopped running and got into a train with the girl. Thus, the third part began, and you guessed it, it was also extra complicated.
3 weeks of rehearsal, and then we rolled right into the first day of shooting, so we started with the train sequence, actually.
The train was real and had 7 compartments. It was going 50 miles per hour down a 36-mile-long stretch of track. This part of the sequence also required some visual effects, for example, to show an exploding helicopter.
Now it becomes a CG takeover into the explosion. We couldn't afford to crash 53 helicopters in the ground.
But the trickiest bit was landing another helicopter on the rooftop of the moving train. It was especially hard for the director as he filmed it with a handheld camera and had to run toward the helicopter. Hargrave said that it kind of felt like running into a hurricane because the downdraft was so strong. But he managed to get pretty close and film it perfectly well. Overall, this whole 21-minute sequence took nearly a month to film. Gee, they've raised the bar so high that we can only guess what they have in mind for the third film. But Hargrave shared that it won't necessarily have a, say, 40-minute one-shot sequence. The last thing I want to do is just keep using it because it's a gimmick, or because we feel like we have to, he said. The director added that whatever they decide, it has to remain organic to the storytelling. That's a smart decision. But don't think that filming insane fight scenes is the only thing the cast and crew got to do in Extraction, because they also never forgot to have fun. For example, it was exciting for Chris and Sam to pay tribute to the lead character's name in the first film.
This came from a fan of these kind of movies. If Tyler Rake kills somebody with a rake in this movie, it's going to be the most amazing thing ever. And I was like, that's actually a great idea.
And after the second movie was done, Hemsworth was delighted to share with the fans how they make all those fight sounds happen. For example, this is the sound of broken bones. Oh, God. And this is punching someone's face.
Oh, it's gonna explode. I love my white t-shirt.
Don't worry, no food was wasted as Chris later ate it all. Next, he tried to recreate the train and helicopter scene by landing a toy helicopter on a moving toy train, and it took 7 attempts.
What?
Yeah, he was pretty surprised that he finally did it. And even with his experience in action movies, Chris still needed advice from an absolute pro.
You could hit the guy with a giant clock and you say, your time is up.
Nice idea for the third film, right? What was your favorite moment in Extraction 2? Share in the comments below. And if you want to learn more about your favorite films, check out our other videos.